I knocked on the door too softly, the sound swallowed by the evening stillness. The white envelope in my hand felt heavy with expectation, yet light with the unspoken tension that hung between us. I could hear the familiar hum of her television, a low murmur of a sitcom I never cared for, the kind that seemed to burrow into the walls of her house and wrap around the very air I breathed. I hesitated, my heart thrumming with anxiety. What would happen if I didn't pay the rent? Yeah, that was the sensible fear, but it was the other kind of fear, the kind that simmered beneath the surface, that made me knock again, this time with a little more urgency. The door swung open with a soft creak, revealing her in a plush robe that hugged her figure, damp hair cascading over her shoulders. A glass of red wine glinted in her hand, catching the last rays of the setting sun filtering through the porch light. The scent that wafted from her house was intoxicating, a blend of citrus and cedar that made my pulse quicken. I could almost taste it, the sweetness mingling with the bitterness of the wine. "You look nervous. Should I be?" she asked, a playful smirk dancing on her lips. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. "No, I just came to pay the rent," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. "Well, come on in," she said, stepping aside as though inviting a guest into a world where the rules of propriety didn't apply. "My name is Daniel Harper. I'm 32, a graphic designer by trade, and right now, I'm caught in a web of my own making." I stepped over the threshold, feeling the weight of her gaze on me, lingering like the final notes of a song that refused to fade. The warmth of her home enveloped me, but the tension inside me tightened like a noose. She led me to the kitchen island, the heart of her home, where the clutter of her life was laid bare. An assortment of half-read books, an empty wine bottle, and the remains of what looked like a hastily abandoned dinner. The kitchen was a symphony of domesticity, with its gleaming countertops and the soft glow of pendant lights hanging overhead. She gestured for me to sit, her demeanor casual, but her eyes scrutinized me with a keen intensity. "Let's see the money," she said, crossing her arms as she leaned against the counter, her posture relaxed yet commanding. I placed the envelope in front of her, my hands trembling slightly, as if I were handing over a secret rather than rent money. She opened it with deliberate care, her fingers dancing over the crisp bills inside, counting them one by one as if inspecting me rather than the cash. Each flick of her wrist sent a shiver up my spine, a strange mixture of dread and exhilaration. Halfway through the count, she paused and lifted her gaze, locking eyes with me in a way that made my stomach flip. "Why do you always look at the floor?" she asked, her tone teasing yet probing. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. I didn't have an answer for her. I was acutely aware of every detail, the way her robe clung to her, the way her lips curled slightly as she waited for me to speak. I felt exposed, vulnerable under her scrutiny. I started, but the words slipped away like sand through my fingers. Instead, I focused on the kitchen island, on the polished wood grain that seemed to mock me. "Daniel," she prompted, her voice softer now, almost coaxing. I trailed off again, feeling the weight of her gaze like a physical force. "I don't want to disturb anything." She raised an eyebrow, a challenge glimmering in her expression. "Disturb what? The flow of my evening? Or something else?" That question hung in the air between us, thick and heavy. I could feel my heart racing, the forbidden closeness of the moment igniting something inside me, something I had tried so hard to bury. "I just came to pay rent," I repeated, the words feeling hollow even as they left my lips. But we both knew it was more than that. The air crackled with unspoken tension, and I could sense the way the atmosphere shifted, like the world had tilted just slightly off its axis. She continued counting the bills, her fingers lingering over each one, inspecting them as if they were pieces of me laid bare. When she finished, she didn't tell me the amount. Instead, she leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "So, Are you always this tense around me? Or is it just today? My breath caught in my throat as I met her gaze, the challenge clear in her eyes. I was caught between the desire to flee and the urge to stay, to unravel the layers of tension that bound us in this moment. It was a dance we had both been performing for far too long, an intricate choreography of avoidance and longing. I don't know, I admitted, my voice barely above a murmur. Maybe it's you. The corner of her mouth lifted in a sly smile, and for a heartbeat, the world outside faded away. It was just the two of us, suspended in this fragile moment where everything felt possible and everything felt perilous. She stepped back, breaking the spell. "I'll write you a receipt," she said, her tone shifting back to business-like efficiency. I watched her move around the kitchen, her robe swaying slightly with each step, the scent of her perfume mingling with the citrus and cedar that enveloped the space. She grabbed a notepad from the counter, her back turned to me, and I took a deep breath, trying to gather my scattered thoughts. As she scribbled, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the unspoken words hanging between us, a chasm I didn't know how to cross. I was acutely aware of the distance between us, yet it felt smaller than ever. "Here you go," she said, turning back with a slip of paper in hand. "And don't forget, rent is due at the beginning of the month." I took the receipt, our fingers brushing for a fleeting moment, a spark igniting in that brief connection. I looked up, our eyes locking once more, and I felt the tension shift again, this time carrying the weight of something deeper. "Do you always let your tenants linger this long?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light, but the question came out heavier than I intended. She laughed softly, the sound like music in the stillness. "Only the ones I find interesting." I swallowed hard, my heart racing. "And what about me makes me interesting?" Her expression shifted, the playful glint in her eyes replaced by something more serious. "You're different, Daniel. You're polite, shy even. But there's something else. Something beneath the surface." "What's that?" I asked, my curiosity piqued, yet fear gnawed at the edges of my resolve. "I can't quite put my finger on it," she said, her voice lowering slightly. "But I can see it in the way you avoid my gaze, the way you hold yourself." I felt exposed, as if she had peeled back the layers of my carefully constructed defenses. "Maybe I'm just not good at this," I admitted, my voice trembling slightly. "Good at what?" she asked, stepping closer again, the distance between us vanishing. "Talking to you," I confessed. "I mean, it feels different." "Different how?" I hesitated, searching for the right words. "It feels like there's something else at play, something we both know but don't acknowledge." She studied me for a long moment, her gaze piercing and contemplative. "You're right," she finally said, her voice softening. "But sometimes, it's easier to ignore what's unspoken. Keeps things simple." "Simple?" I echoed, my heart racing. "Or complicated?" She smiled, a hint of mischief in her eyes. "Complicated and exhilarating." I felt a rush of heat flood my cheeks. "I don't know if I can handle exhilarating," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe you can," she replied, her expression resolute. "Maybe you just need to lean into it a little." Our eyes locked again, the weight of her words sinking deep into my consciousness. I felt the pull of her presence, drawing me closer, the tension thickening like a fog that obscured everything else. "Maybe you're right," I finally said, my voice steadying. "But what if it goes wrong?" "Then we deal with it," she replied, her expression unwavering. "Life is messy, Daniel. Sometimes you have to risk a little chaos for something worthwhile." I was caught in the whirlwind of her words, the truth of them striking a chord deep inside me. I wanted to take that risk, to step into the chaos, but fear held me back like a vice. "Let's not make this harder than it has to be," I said, my voice faltering. "Who said anything about hard?" she countered, a teasing smile playing on her lips. I found myself smiling in return, the warmth of her presence wrapping around me like a comforting blanket. For the first time, the tension felt less like a barrier and more like a bridge, a connection that was fragile yet electrifying. "Maybe I just need to learn how to look up," I said, finally meeting her gaze with a newfound resolve. "Good," she said, her eyes sparkling with approval. "Because I'd like to see you do that." As we stood there, the kitchen filled with the scent of citrus and cedar, I could feel the air between us shift yet again. It was a moment suspended in time, a fragile dance we had begun to navigate together. The evening stretched on, and with each passing moment, the shadows in the room deepened, wrapping around us in a cocoon of intimacy. I could feel the world outside her home receding, the sounds of the city blurring into a distant hum. It was as if we were in our own universe, a secret realm that belonged solely to us. "Do you want to stay for a bit?" she asked, her voice laced with an invitation that sent a thrill coursing through me. "Stay," I repeated, the word hanging in the air like a promise. "Just for a little while. I could pour you a glass of wine. I've got a nice Cabernet that would pair well with this conversation," she said, gesturing to the bottle resting on the counter. The thought of lingering, of crossing that threshold from tenant to something more, sent a rush of adrenaline through me. But hesitation clawed at the edges of my mind. "I shouldn't," I replied, my voice wavering with uncertainty. "Why not?" she pressed, her tone playful but her eyes serious. "We're both adults here. It's just a glass of wine." I could feel the pull between us, the magnetic force that seemed to draw me closer against my better judgment. "Okay," I said finally, the words slipping from my lips like a confession. "Just one glass." The smile that broke across her face was radiant, as if I had just given her a gift. She poured the wine, the deep red liquid swirling in the glass like a vortex of possibilities. I took a sip, allowing the rich flavors to wash over me, and felt my nerves begin to ease, if only just a little. As we talked, the conversation flowed easily, weaving through safe topics like work, hobbies, and our shared love for art. I found myself laughing more than I had in ages, the tension from earlier dissipating with each sip of wine. She had a way of making me feel at ease, as if the weight of the world had lifted from my shoulders. But beneath the surface, the unspoken tension still simmered, a current that surged with each passing moment. I found myself stealing glances at her, at the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke and the way her laughter danced in the air like music. It was intoxicating, and I could feel the gravity of the moment pulling me closer to her. "Tell me something about yourself that I wouldn't know," she said suddenly, leaning in closer, her eyes probing mine. I hesitated, the question hanging heavy in the air. "Something you wouldn't know?" I repeated, trying to buy time as I rifled through my mind for a suitable answer. "Yeah, something that might surprise me," she pressed, her expression encouraging. I thought for a moment, the wine warming my veins and emboldening me. "I used to play the guitar," I said finally, a small smile tugging at my lips. "Acoustic, mostly. I was in a band in college." Her eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Really? A musician? What happened to that?" I chuckled, the memory flooding back. "Life happened, I guess. I traded my guitar for a laptop and a desk job. But I still miss it sometimes." "Why don't you play anymore?" she asked, genuine curiosity lighting up her expression. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling a pang of regret. "I suppose I let the practicalities of life take over. I got caught up in work, and it felt like there was no time for hobbies." "Don't you think you should make time for the things that matter?" she asked, her voice softening. "Yeah, I suppose you're right," I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me at her concern. "I just get so wrapped up in everything. Sometimes you just have to let go," she said, her gaze steady and unwavering. "Life is too short to be serious all the time." I nodded, her words resonating with me. "I know you're right. It's just hard to break from old habits." Maybe you just need a little push, she suggested, her tone playful yet serious. I could help with that, you know? I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Oh, really? How would you do that? By challenging you, she replied, her smile widening. I could be your muse. We could set a goal for you to play again. The thought sent a thrill of excitement coursing through me, an idea both terrifying and exhilarating. You'd really do that? I asked, surprised by her enthusiasm. Absolutely, she said, her eyes sparkling. But you have to promise to put in the effort. I can't be the only one pushing you. I promise, I replied, feeling a surge of determination. I'll practice. Good, she said, her smile broadening. And who knows, maybe we'll end up starting our own band. The thought of us as a duo, a graphic designer and a budding musician, sent a rush of warmth through me. That sounds like a disaster, I joked, but deep down, the idea thrilled me. Maybe, she laughed, but it would be a fun disaster. As the night wore on, we delved deeper into conversation, sharing our dreams, fears, and aspirations. Each story felt like a thread weaving us closer together, the fabric of our connection growing richer with every shared laugh and heartfelt confession. I felt a sense of liberation as I opened up to her, shedding the layers of anxiety and self-doubt that had long held me captive. Do you believe in fate? She asked suddenly, her expression serious. The question took me by surprise. Fate, I echoed, pondering the concept. I don't know. I think we create our own paths, don't we? She tilted her head, considering my response. Maybe, but sometimes it feels like certain people come into our lives for a reason. I felt the weight of her gaze, the unspoken connection between us growing more palpable. Are you saying I came into your life for a reason? I asked, my heart racing at the thought. Maybe, she replied, her voice low and inviting. Or maybe it's the other way around. The air crackled with tension, a charged silence enveloping us as we locked eyes. I could feel the pull, the magnetic force drawing me closer to her. The world outside faded away, leaving only the two of us suspended in this moment of raw possibility. Daniel, she said softly, breaking the silence. What are you afraid of? The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. I'm afraid of getting hurt, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. By me? She asked, her eyes searching mine. I nodded, the vulnerability in the moment washing over me. I don't want to ruin this, whatever this is. Then don't, she said, her voice steady. Just be yourself. It's all I want from you. A warmth spread through me at her words, a flicker of hope igniting in the depths of my heart. Okay, I said, my voice steadier now. I can do that. She smiled, the warmth of her gaze wrapping around me like a soft embrace. Good, because I really like who you are, Daniel. The sincerity in her voice sent a rush of warmth coursing through me. For the first time, I felt seen, not just as a tenant or a graphic designer, but as a person complex and flawed, yet worthy of connection. As the evening drew to a close, I realized that I had stepped into a new chapter of my life, one filled with uncertainty but also with promise. The envelope that had once felt heavy with expectation now lay empty in my pocket, a reminder of the courage it took to knock on her door. With a final lingering glance, I stepped back into the evening air, the world outside bright and bustling. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. The uncertainty loomed large, but beneath it, a flicker of hope ignited, a promise that maybe, just maybe, the chaos could lead to something beautiful. As I walked away from her home, I felt lighter, as though a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The city lights twinkled around me, a kaleidoscope of possibilities stretching out before me. I was no longer just a tenant. I was a man on the brink of something new, something exhilarating. And as I looked up at the stars dotting the darkening sky, I couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. the thrill of the unknown beckoning me forward.